Hello, so I was using the if name equal main famous test and realized I didn't really dig into it. It's just something I picked up from a tutorial and I started to use in my projects, and sometimes I just enjoy knowing why things work the way they do. So I went through a few tests and that's a video. So let's go. So first of all, what happens if we basically just print this name statement? Well, we get main. That's pretty fair, right? That's what it's all about. But why is it main and not like the name of my file or anything else? Um, well, I did a few more tests, and what's funny is that those are just a whole which is called the magic method, and you might have seen them with your learnings about classes. So if I'm having like a class person, usually what you're gonna do is define an init method. um, with like x and a y, for example, stuff like that, and of course the self. Um, but you can also define other stuff like a I don't know, add method, which is going to do an addition of something, or you can define I don't know, a new method. Okay, so those are the magic methods. So it's inherent abilities of your function of your class, which already exists for a lot of things. So it's interesting to sometimes get to know what they all do. But what this is interesting for is that the inherent Python magic method add can be uh, wired into this new function that you're creating instead of the original function that it is. So if I say, let me see, because I never tested that, if x equal 1, you can print x dot underscore underscore add underscore underscore 1 and get 2. But if I was to create a function, a new class, sorry, person, I could change that add methods application to maybe add always 2, for example, or something like that, or to add 1 more than expected or something. So this format now is more clear to me. What's funny is that you could also have a function, so define func func because I don't want to be too lost here, that takes like no arguments, and that's gonna print hello, because let's be original, right? If you're going to say, so func dot underscore underscore name underscore underscore, you also get something. It's the name of the function, right? So inherently, when you create a function, in the background, Python is going to give it all those attributes linked to those magic methods. And so overall, it means you can always access informations about the different objects you're using in Python. What's interesting though is that if you create, I don't know, a string x hello of its own, and you try to get this x.name printed, then you get an error because a string variable is not going to have a name. So I guess in the end it's just a matter of like knowing what goes with what. But at least like it makes sense overall. So you have a way of having a lot of informations like that, and it's going to be dear integer, for example, and let's print it. And you're gonna have a list of magic methods that are related to that kind of objects. I'm not very comfortable with that yet, because usually you just do it on your own, but it's a very interesting way to sometimes like do things like this if name equals main. So let's get back on that main topic though. What is this main equal name equals main thing? Well, we saw that printing name here is going to be equal to main. Why? Well, because it means that we're running in the actual file, the script that we're using. Okay, so if I'm running my cool app.py, I'm the name is the main script. But what's interesting is when we get into another script. And so let's say that I have this anything file in there, and I can do like a function in here, and I'm gonna need it in my main app, and I'm gonna be like defining useful func. That's gonna take out, let's say it's an actual thing, it takes 2 arguments and it's going to return x plus y. Okay, so what's gonna happen is that I'm gonna import it here. So from anything, I still cannot type, import useful func. That's right. Yeah. And then I could just say useful func of 2 and 1. And I didn't print it, so I'll print it here. And I get my 3. But what's happening here? If I'm printing name in my function, let's do it again. And here the name is anything because I'm importing, I'm using the function in anything. So in here, when we're printing the name, we are in the script anything, meaning that we're not in the main script anymore. So that's why we're going to be using this if name equals main statement, because let's say that you're like let's say that you coded your whole thing here and you're like, well, I want to test it out, right? So I'm gonna be like useful func of 1000 and of 10, and I'm gonna assign it to a variable and be like print that variable, you know, basic stuff. And then we're in main, we're using the main script to use its all function, and so we're testing it out with this 10. Okay, and it means that here we're not going to use this statement if we're in my cool app. So here, if I do this again, we're back in using anything, but we're not printing the 1010 value because you're not in the main script when you're calling your useful func. So what's that's going to do is that you're going to go into anything, but you're not going to be calling everything from it, because what's happening when you're starting reading a script is that Python is going to actually go through it for real. It's going to do everything, so anything that's not in a function is going to apply. And so let's maybe do this way, and what happens? Well, everything's printing again and again because there is nothing telling Python not to apply this x equal useful function and print x. So in the end, if you were to have like multiple modules of multiple functions that you've gathered through your coding sessions, if you want to call them from your main app, then you're going to be running everything that's in your script. So this if name equals main statement is a way to protect your function, your files, so that everything is neat. So everything is in a class, everything is in a function. So to me, that's all I wanted to go through. Maybe another example of how this can be useful, which is pretty interesting, is that we could also be printing out informations about the module we're using. So let's say that you're here and you have an f string here, and you could be like calling useful func dot name, okay, from the name module. And so what's going to happen is that I should have, calling useful func from anything module. So that means that you could assign to a variable for any kind of reason the function you're going to be calling or the object you're going to be using to bring it back into a notification, into your app, into anything, saying like, oh, okay, maybe you had multiple ways of going with a certain problem and your app had to choose this one because of some reason, right? Maybe the user's input or maybe the result of the calculations. And so this is maybe a way for you to be tracking exactly what your app is doing, or just to maybe sometimes like debug something that's happening. So that's also a way to use it that I just came across first, and that made me want to do this little video. But I think that's all. It's already way done enough, I think. And I hope it makes this if name equals main stuff a little more clear to you. So yeah, see you around.